Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the Catholic Mama. I'm your host, Christine Mooney Flynn. Thank you for joining us, actually. I have a guest. Are you in suspense, everyone? I bet you can't guess who it is. Shh, don't say anything yet. It's the theologian in residence, the one, the only, my husband, Pat Flynn.
For a twofer as well. We're doing a double header of podcasts tonight.
Yes. So long as a teething baby stays asleep, the dog doesn't start barking, I think we can make it happen.
Well, I'm gonna sit back and make myself comfortable then.
So you're gonna fall asleep.
Yeah.
If you hear snoring, it could either be the Saint Bernard in her old age has been snoring, or Pat, because since you are lounging.
That's right. So we have to remedy sin, is that?
Yeah, so last week on the show...
Oh boy, do we.
Yeah, oh boy. I jokingly said on Instagram, I posted about the podcast, which was pick your poison, what is your root sin? And every time I post about sin on Instagram, I lose followers. It's such a hedonistic platform, though. I mean, it's just beautiful pictures and, looking at close-ups of wine and food and close-ups of
close-ups of sin.
It really is. And I mean, it's a great...
Wine's not a sin.
No, it's not. No. But it is. It's a very sensual platform.
Mm-hmm.
So it would make sense, I guess. That people there don't really want to be reminded of the fact that whatever they're seeing on Instagram isn't real life, and maybe it shouldn't be real life. That's not where your focus should be. It should be internal.
Yeah.
Or am I thinking too deeply into Instagram? I might be.
No, I think you're right. I think it is a very hedonistic, superficial platform, and I come at it from a largely different angle. In the fitness space, it's terrible, frankly. But you know what? You do what you have to reach people, and obviously, I appreciate those. And it's the same problems in the fitness industry. There's things that need to be said, and people don't want to hear those things. And they'll just go chasing down the things that they want to hear rather than the things that they need to hear. So it's sort of the story of life, but it's most pernicious when it comes to offenses to God, which is sin. Fair enough if you don't want to hear the truth about dieting or nutrition, but we got some real issues if you're going to start denying sin. Yeah,
I guess. The most unfollows I ever get are if I mention the word sin or the Virgin Mary. At that point, just flooding downward. But then people come in and they start to follow, and that makes me realize that in our evangelization efforts, it's the good, the true, the beautiful.
Yes.
So with Instagram, a lot of it can be very beauty heavy, which is fine. I mean, that's what it's there for.
Yep.
I get that. I'm not anti-Instagram. I like Instagram. I think it's fun. But there are doses of true and good that need to be poured in there as well. And people are not going to like that and bounce. And then there are other people who it'll be a breath of fresh air. Am I dyslexic? God.
Yeah.
Saying everything backwards.
You are.
Oh boy. Why didn't I realize this 30 years ago? So it's, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I always think of people that I admire, especially in the religious world, especially since the rise of various media platforms. Mother Angelica, for example.
What a woman!
It's hard for me to imagine somebody couldn't love Mother Angelica.
She got hate mail.
Of course she did. Because she told it like it is. And there was a woman who loved Jesus, who loved the faith, and was just so unapologetic and unabashed and just talking about the things that mattered most. And yes, a lot of people apparently didn't want to hear it. Well, too bad. But she made such a difference, and she made such a significance, and she brought so many people into the faith. She deepened the faith. There's so many people already there. So to anybody who's listening who sometimes feels a little bit shy, especially if you're evangelizing yourself on social media. Look, you're never going to please everybody. No matter what you do, as soon as you try and please everybody, you're just going to be so boring that nobody's going to pay attention anyways. So just go with God. Speak the truth.
Truth, goodness, beauty.
Yes.
So the podcast I did last week solo. I'm sorry I didn't invite you into that one.
How terrifying.
So that was about, pick your poison. What's your root sin? It's really interesting to me. You can only sin really in a handful of ways. It's pretty boring. Now you can love, but you can show love in a vast multitude of ways. Mm-hmm. Small ways, big ways, medium ways, everyday things, heroic deeds. You can show love in many, many different ways, but you can only sin in a very few ways, I think. So root sins, there's only 3 of them. Now, of course, once you get in there, there's little nuances. Are you mean to somebody? Mm-hmm. Do you care too much about what other people think of you? Whatever. But there's these 3 main sins: pride, vanity, and sensuality. Pride is a feeling of you're putting too much stock in yourself. Vanity would be that you have a disordered attachment to what other people think about you.
Like Instagram followers.
And then sensuality would be a disordered attachment to things. Yeah. I have to go shopping if I'm going to be happy. I have to have this wine if I'm going to be happy. So those are our poisons, but there are antidotes, and they are theological in nature. Mm-hmm. And that is why you are here, since you are just so chatty.
I love how I always come on here to get insulted.
You talk too much.
My favorite in this was one episode we ran on a 7-minute monologue, only to wrap up by saying that I talk too much.
I had a lot to say at that moment compared to you. That was rare.
Yes,
it's usually you.
Well, I will prove your point here, I'm sure. So the 3 theological virtues you want to talk about?
Yeah, because I think those are our antidotes. Yeah, those are the remedies to the poison of these 3 root sins of pride, vanity, sensuality.
Yes.
And also those. Now, let's actually talk about this. There are theological virtues, cardinal virtues.
Yes.
Theological are ones that are given by the grace of God, but cardinal ones we develop.
Yeah. So the way to think about it is this: Aquinas was really helpful in this regard, as he is in many. The cardinal virtues are the things that we can sort of reason out and develop through ourselves, through our own rational powers and things like that. And those would be the ones. I think we've talked about those before, haven't we? The cardinal virtues before?
Maybe.
Temperance, fortitude, justice, those ones? Maybe not. Yeah.
We've done 20-some episodes now.
So the 4 cardinal virtues are prudence, which is the chariot virtue, and that's practical wisdom.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Right? And then we have justice, and we have fortitude, and we have temperance. Now, I think all of those are extremely important. But those are the sort of the hinge virtues, is another way to think about it. Of course, each of those can kind of break down into many other virtues and categories as well. But those are the cardinal virtues, the hinge virtues. And then the theological virtues are they're gifts. They're offered to us by God. They're not something that we can develop completely on our own. Now, they do require, as all grace does, our cooperation. Right, so we can reject them just as we can reject any grace. So it's not something that's completely irresistible. Obviously not. People abandon faith. So, by the way, I should list what they are. So the 3 theological virtues are faith, hope, and charity, or sometimes called love. Faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and charity. And these are the ones that are given to us by God that we need to respond to and try and live in accordance with. That's the main way to differentiate between those 2. And because some people would say, well, how is faith a virtue? And this was something that when I first really started studying this stuff, I didn't understand. Like, what the heck is faith? How is that a virtue exactly? But when you start to understand what faith is, which is trusting in which you have good reason to believe, you start to see, well, this very much is a virtue, because there's times in your life where maybe you did lose your faith, or you could lose your faith, but you shouldn't have. For example, based on what you know, you abandon your faith because because of an emotion or because of a mood, but not because of what you know to be true. So faith should be persevering in tough times, for example. So that's where you see, well, okay, now it actually does make sense. It really is. It's not just being gullible or credulous, for example. It really is trusting in that which you have good reason to believe in God, God's providence, so on and so forth. And there's going to be challenges to that. So holding to faith in spite of those challenges is really what makes it a virtue. Yes?
Yes.
Good.
I'm listening intently as I stare off into space.
We're going to give a test at the end here.
You know, I think it is why I can't remember if we've talked about this on these podcasts before, is because you talk about this stuff at home all the time. I don't remember which one's recorded and which one's not.
Neither do I.
And most of the time, my eyes just glaze over. No. Smile and nod, Christine. Smile and nod.
So the theological virtues, I mean, they're all important, but the theological virtues are they're graces. So they're especially important.
Well, something like if these are graces, they are things that we can develop on our own slightly, though, once we have them, or no? These are all your amount of hope that you have is only a gift from God?
Well, yeah, especially in relation to revelation and what we're hoping for. Yeah, so it's sort of in the sense that think of the Trinity, for example. So by our own reasoning powers, we can know that God exists, but we don't know that the Trinity exists. There's no way that we could reason that out. We can get to a general monotheism through various philosophical arguments and natural theological arguments like Aristotle and Aquinas did through change, or Leibniz, or many modern people now. But nothing through reason alone would tell us or lead us to believe that God is actually three persons in one. That is a gift from God, a revelation. So I think that's a decent analogy in a way to think of three theological virtues. There may be parts of them that we can develop on our own, but in full, they really are gifts or graces that require our cooperation in order to live those virtues. And it's important to understand that a virtue is really it's like a habit. It's not something you do once. It's not. Think of it like tennis, right? If you just hit a good serve once, it doesn't make you a good tennis player. Could have happened by accident or whatever. You need to be able to do that consistently and practice it over time, and then you become a good tennis player. Same thing with virtue. It's really character traits that are developed over time.
But then who's developing it? God gives them to us, but then we are in charge of cooperating with that gift and opening ourselves to developing them. Like, how does that work?
Yes, it's exactly that. Like responding to God's grace in any capacity. We have to. That's the importance of free will. We're not just automata, right? God gives us a choice, and there's many sort of theological doctrines on that, Dominican, Thomistic, and otherwise, of how free will and God's providence and grace all kind of intertwine, and it can get really technical. But the short of it is that we can reject grace. We can turn away from God. That's a sin, right? It's like one of the highest sins. Or we can cooperate with the grace that God gives us and say, okay, God, thy will be done. Help me to be a more loving person. It's hard to be a loving person. Like, if you think about what true love is, agape, the Christian love, the self-sacrificial love, the example that the priest gave in the homily of like the type of love that a parent gives a teenager, where they never get anything in return, they never expect anything in return, and apply that concept to everybody else. You think, wow, that seems impossible, right? Then you start to have an understanding of why you would need God's help to accomplish something like that, like why that would not be something you could do on your own.
Yeah, this is actually a quote from the Walking with Purpose book. The Bible study.
The club I'm not allowed in.
Yeah, well, it's a women's club.
Tried.
This is from Father John Bertunik. I'm probably pronouncing it correctly. Yep. It's like sitting in the electric chair in place of the man who murdered your children so that he doesn't have to suffer and die.
Yes.
Crazy love, incalculable love, unfathomable love. And that is God's glory, making known God's love.
Yeah, and
isn't that fascinating? Yeah, that's a great perspective.
So when you think of, you need the right conception of love to understand this. If you think of love like, oh, he's so cute, or, snuggly love, or romantic, like sexual type of love. So, like the four types of love, the famous four types of love, we have eros, storge, philia, and agape, and agape. So we have, friendship love or brotherly love. We have the love for like things like I love coffee, or I love this shirt. Or these, this pillow. It's a really nice pillow.
It's not a nice pillow that you're sitting
on. Eros, romantic love, sexual, intimacy. If any of those are your conception of love, then yeah, you can probably be like, well, why is that? Why is that a virtue? Why do we need grace for that? But when you understand the agape, however people want to pronounce it, then once you grasp what Christian love really is, the type of love that God has for us, you realize, oh yeah, that's definitely something we need help with. That's not something we can do on our own. Something we can respond to, ask for God's help, and sort of go along with that and say, God, help me to love people in this way. And and what grace does is it doesn't eliminate human nature, but it helps to perfect it. So it is a gradual process. It's not like you convert and get baptized and suddenly you're Mother Teresa, right? You need to cooperate with it. You need to work along with it.
I would say that's actually one of the biggest lies of the whole being a spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
Is this idea that you can just be that way. You just have to open yourself enough. You don't need God. Like this spiritual but not religious person. You just explaining that in that way just sounds like you say like we can't do this on our own. That sounds like what I was trying to do back when I was like super into whatever chakras and yoga.
When you were a neo-pagan.
Yeah. Before atheist. It's hard to keep track of all the crap that I associate myself with. But I think that's one of the biggest lies of that spiritual but not religious crowd is that you can get there on your own. You just have to unlock the universe or whatever that's inside of you. Yes. You're made of stars. You're the same stuff that's in you made stars. I don't know, whatever that saying is.
Yes, I know what you're saying.
It's a big lie. You need God to be able to understand that kind of love. And we can't understand that love truly in this life.
No.
Except with revelation. And then even that, it will be fleeting.
Yes.
It probably won't stick with us from the moment that the Holy Spirit injects it into you versus, the rest of your life.
And I will say, in personal experience, we'll put the loved one aside too, which definitely true in my experience. Like I feel that the love that I'm able to express now, I would never have thought that I was capable of before, ever. Even just within people that we know. And I know we've talked about this before. Like there really was a transformation just from accepting and responding to that. But faith is another one too. And that's why there's so many prayers saying, God, help me to, trust you more. Help me to love you more. Help me to know you more. You're telling God that you want to cooperate with His grace to deepen your faith. And that was something that was very real for me. Intellectually, I was there. I believed in God's existence, this or that, but I needed God's grace to help move my entire person, to really help me move that relationship fully in faith and develop that.
Do you like that, a prayer of abandonment for that?
Yeah, I do. It's an amazing
the prayer of abandonment. I heard this on a Franciscan media or Franciscan University presents.
Yeah.
A priest was on there and he just mentioned that every morning he prays the prayer of abandonment. So I looked it up and we've been doing it. I think it's fantastic.
It's a perfect example of this where, okay, my head was there, but my heart kind of wasn't, and I didn't know how to get it there. But then, you realize, oh, you need that gift. You need that help. And you need to respond to it. You need to ask God for that help. You say, God, I want to love you more. I want to trust you more. I want to know you more. Help me to do these things. And repeat that, and He will give you the grace to do it. And then that's when you will really see, oh, it is a virtue. It is something that develops. But at the same time, it's not something I'm developing myself. It's something, and that was something I never understood when I first studied Aquinas until I became a Christian and practiced it. I was always like, this doesn't make sense to me. And that was weird because everything that Aquinas did made sense to me. And then now I get it. I'm like, oh, well, go figure. He was absolutely right yet again.
Brilliant man. Okay. So we have our three theological virtues that can be the antidotes, the poison of those root sins. But it sounds like to me we could draw a line, like connect the two that correspond to one another, like pride pride goes with faith, vanity goes with charity, sensuality goes to hope.
Yep.
But it seems to me that you kind of need all three of them.
Yes.
Right? As the proud person. So
a package deal.
They are
on.
a package deal, right? Because I didn't didn't really leave anybody in suspense on the last episode. Took me about all of 5 minutes to say, hey, you know which one I identified with? Pride. Big time. You know what I thought was very funny, and you'll like this. I don't know if you heard it when I was recording that episode. It said one of the indicators that your root sin may be pride was that you can't take orders.
Is that so?
So how
many times? Don't tell me what to do.
I was laughing. I laughed, dying over that.
Such a good time there.
How much pain and suffering I've caused. No, let's all laugh about that. But and so the antidote to that might be faith, and for me, because the root sin is definitely for me is pride. I really started digging into that one personally over the past week or so, really thinking about it. So with pride, I can see where faith would be a really great antidote to that poison. Where how many times I've said, oh, I'll just do it on my own. You know what? I'm on my own on this. Clearly, I just have to do this myself. All these hateful thoughts or things that I've said out loud. But if I had faith that I wasn't alone, that God was there to help me, then maybe it would have lessened those feelings over time. And so that has been a huge unlock for me since, just the past week of learning about these root sins and which one I identified with.
That's why the study of sin is important.
Right. Yeah.
It's essential. It's critical.
And I think the problem is if you could rename sin, sin is so laden with misconceptions and just emotional baggage. People see sin and they think Bible thumping, fire and brimstone, caricatures of what it is. But again, and I've said this before, sin really just means missing the mark. Sometimes you miss by a lot, sometimes you miss by a little. Most of the time, hopefully it's missing by a little, but we still miss. It's just if you identify sin, then you invite introspection.
Yes.
You think about what happened, you play the tape over, not beating yourself up. You go to confession for that. Get it out in the open.
What a
clear it
wonderful
off,
sacrament.
Right?
Honest to God.
So really, it's like watching the tape. Of the game, the big game. You watch the tape of the day after, be like, oh wow, really messed up there. You go and confess it. You get forgiven, and then you work towards being a better person. You can't get your sins forgiven if you don't even know what your sins are in the first place. And Lord knows we all sin.
That's right.
So
we are all sinners. Some people don't like to hear it.
We're all sinners. Go to confession.
Sinners.
So for me, I can see where faith, but also hope kind of goes along with that faith for the proud person such as myself, where hope in that things will get better, hope that I'm not alone, and then also charity, being more accepting of other people's limitations, and my own limitations. So it seems like as much as I can say, oh, okay, draw a line from pride to faith, those go together. It is a package deal. It's like you put a big bracket and an arrow.
Yes.
If anybody can see you can see me. I'm using my hands a lot right now. Yeah.
You say I talk a lot.
I'm excited.
No,
I love talking about sin.
It's good. It's my favorite thing.
Favorite topic
to avoid. You're absolutely right. And of course that's true. Faith, hope, and love. Where does love not come in handy, right? what does love not help with? You
said prudence is the chariot.
Prudence is going back to the cardinal virtues. Yeah, prudence is practical wisdom, where you use the insight from the past to make a decision in the present, hopefully for a better outcome in the future. It helps to sort of guide and orient.
And then you pack all the other cardinal virtues in the chariot and off you go.
Correct, yeah.
I'm trying to think, is love then almost like that for the theological? But I guess you kind of need all of it.
Help you how was it best to show love in this situation, right? Do I sit and do I console? Is it a tough love? Love isn't always the nicest thing.
You just have to read the Old Testament to find that out.
Like sometimes love, so that's why prudence is so important, right? And that's why you need that practical experience and wisdom. So what is love? To will the good of the other for other. That's what love is. Now, how do you figure out how to do that without prudence? You need some type of insight of saying, okay, well, what would be really good for this person in this circumstance? And I don't know, who's that person? What's the circumstance? So yes, there's a very important connection there. I think sometimes people confuse love with just being nice all the time. It's not. It's just. I mean, like, it's nice to be nice when you can be nice. You should be nice when you can be nice. But sometimes people need tough love. Right? Sometimes people need hard truth. I needed that in my life. Fortunately, people loved me enough to give me that hard truth, and it helped to build me up.
You've given me plenty of hard truths. Like I say, I hated it every moment of it, but once I calm down, a year later, no, it's so helpful. And I, knowing that, you and I already had that trust, love connection. And so it wasn't just feeling like you were being mean. These were loving truths that you were trying to impart on us.
I try to tell people that. I mean, I tell people all the time is, especially in a coaching role that I take, is I criticize because I care. It'd be easy for me, like coming back to the fitness aspect, or even if I do business consulting, it would be easy for me to just tell you all the things you wanted to hear and how great you are, this or that. But that's not what's going to help you improve. That's not going to help you to really to flourish in the way that you want to do. And that's a lesson I learned by having very good, caring, loving coaches myself, and not just coaches, but my grandfather, another great example, who I know loved me deeply, and a number of times in my life, took me aside and was not very nice. He wasn't actively trying to be mean, but he spoke hard truth to me, things I needed to hear, things I did not like hearing at the time. So I mean, look, when it comes to love, like, we have to get away from this sort of babyish idea of just making everything soft and nice and comforting. Or that's not, I mean, Jesus wasn't always soft and nice and comforting. Not by any stretch. Right.
And if he is the pinnacle of what we should be aspiring to be, it's not all just hearts, rainbows, and unicorns.
Yeah. So I think a lot of there's like a lot of misconceptions about sin. There's a lot of misconception about what it means to love thy neighbor and what the Christian love really is. So, yeah. So
in the last episode, I challenged people to think about which root sin they might actually be falling into. And again, with the root sins, you hit all of them. Sometimes you have a disordered need for other people's affection and the likes on Instagram or the follows. Other times you feel like I need to buy this shirt if I'm going to be happy. Other times you feel like you're going alone and at all costs you were going to get that promotion at work. But I challenge people to, pick out which root sin you felt like you identified with the most. And I had some indicators. I listed off some indicators of, you may be a proud person if, or you may, maybe a vain person if, identify that, think about it, pray on it. And then also over the course of the few days, start to notice when those feelings or the indicators of those sins started to crop up. Just notice, and maybe just sit with it, maybe log it. You can't go wrong with a good old sin log. So instead of a training log,
why not
a sin log? No, so that was my thing. Just to have that awareness.
Have you done an episode on how to make a good confession yet? That would be.
You know what? One of my first. It's been a while. One of my first episodes was about reconciliation.
The old Baltimore Catechism. We should bring that up because that is a good section on how to make a good confession.
We should. Yeah, because it's been a while. I mostly just went through and told people here's what to expect, and here's what you should do leading up. But it's been a while. It's been a couple months. Yeah. Why not? There's never too many times where you can mess it and talk about reconciliation. But really just opening yourself to having that introspection. Now, if we are talking about what is the homework to something like this, do you have any ideas?
Pray. You gotta pray. You gotta pray.
That's it. The answer for everything.
That's so huge. I mean, you gave a great resource, the abandonment prayer. Look that up. Look up prayers to help invite and request the assistance from God. To
Yeah. You know what? Hold on. Let me.
Getting the old prayer book.
Where do we get this thing? Was this a church?
Yeah, that they were just giving that out at church.
Stewardship of Prayer, my daily Catholic prayers.
Yeah.
And in this
great.
thing, it is great.
I have one in my car too.
That's good. Yep. There's morning prayer. I love that one. Morning prayer is great. That's a great way to start the day. Come Holy Spirit. Fantastic. And the abandonment prayer. Any of these. Litany of Humility. Wow. We probably all need that, don't we? But yeah, look, there are so many prayers, and there are different ways that you can use your rosary beads for prayers. You know, there's so many different ones that you could pick. Find one that really speaks to you. The prayer of abandonment.
That's it. I mean, that's really it. There's no other way to help get in tune, to help develop these theological virtues without prayer, because you need that grace and you need to respond to that grace. So that's it. You need to pray. You need to pray.
All right. So we got that. All right. So introspection, take notice of what's happening in your life. Play that tape a little bit. Not that you're going to beat yourself up. Don't do that. But play the tape. See where you may have gone wrong, what you can do to make it better. This isn't just like, you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking about all the things that you messed up 6 years ago and you're not sleeping until 4 a.m. This is play the tape from the day. Realize, you know what I could have done better. And then just try to let it go. It's going to be hard. And then the next day, pray. Or that night, pray. Pray again. Pray some more. That Saturday or whenever your parish is doing confession, do confession.
Take frequent use of that sacrament.
I tell you, 100 pounds lighter going out. It's amazing. And you feel great. You're like light as air. And then you go and sit again right back.
Frequent use of confession.
Yeah. So introspection, confession, prayer. There you go.
It's a great start anyway.
It is a great start. Have a prayer journal. Just take note. Have a journal in general. Just a regular old diary. You can put a little lock on it. Draw some hearts on the front.
I got mine.
You got yours. I used to have a Lisa Frank one that had the lock was a gumball machine. And then the key had a heart on it.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's cute. Anyway, probably not talking much about sin back then.
Don't suppose you were.
I don't suppose I was. All right. Do you have any closing thoughts, or do we cover it all?
No, I think that's a good start. Memorize the virtues. Look, you got 7 of them. It's not a big. It's not a big task, right? But understand that the 3, the theological virtues, again, are gifts from God. You need to pray. You need to respond to that grace, and with God's help, it's possible.
All things possible through Christ.
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. We always have fun doing this, as you can tell. It's funny. As you think I'm wrapping up, here I go again. No. We talked about that.
They're just idling in their driveway right now. When can I go inside?
I mean, you and I've always been a very chatty person, but even you and I, before we became Catholic, it seemed like we were peering out on some things and conversations that almost seem like to me.
Yeah, what else do we have to talk about?
Yeah, what else do we have to talk about? Nothingness, right?
The void.
The void, that the cosmic waste that the earth was careening through, and our lives were turning to dust. No, but I gotta say, this has been a lot of fun because our relationship started on a very chatty note. We were just 2 chatty Cathys talking a bunch, and then it kind of petered out. Now look where we are.
I know, and I really do mean it. I was on a podcast earlier today. I'm on podcasts all the time. This is my favorite podcast to be on.
That's really nice.
Do mean it. Yep.
So if this is your favorite podcast to listen to, please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a review. Those reviews do so much to help boost us on search results and spread the word. I guarantee there's not that many Catholic moms out there having Catholic mom podcasts with their Catholic husbands. Catholic. But really, the world now more than ever needs strong voices. This is a small little way of having a strong voice that we're trying to do here. All we want to do is spread this little ministry. So if you can, leave a review. It really helps. Say something nice. And always come on over to Instagram or thecatholicmama.com. There's blog posts over there that we don't even touch on in these podcast episodes. Please come find me. Come say hello. I love talking to all of you. And thank you again for listening. Really appreciate it. Till next time. Don't forget to head over to thecatholicmama.com to get your free copy of How to Talk to Your Kids About God. This handy little ebook will teach you how to broach the topic of God with your children, or how to respond to your kids when they want to talk about God, as well as give you answers to 7 of the trickiest questions about the faith that Christian parents face. You'll love the easy-to-understand grown-up answers, the pared-down but not talked-down answers you can share with your kids, plus recommended resources if you'd like to deepen your understanding of the topic. Get yours free at thecatholicmama.com.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.